start off by giving a special thanks to Jennifer Tescher and the entire Financial Health Network team. The work you're doing is so important, so timely, innovative, and groundbreaking. And but for us, most of all, you're just great partners, and we're really proud to be doing this work together with you. So I want to get right to my conversation, and I'm really excited to hear from Grace about her story. But let me just say it's entirely appropriate that we're beginning this conference by focusing in on the financial health of our employees. It's such an important place to start for every company to be thinking about employee financial wellness and to be thinking about financial health in the context of what we can be doing for our employees. And we've been on this journey with the Financial Health Network and others focusing on this. And we look at it as our most important priority, how we think about investing in our employees, putting our employees first, and employee financial wellness is critical. Chobani has been just a pioneer in this work. And I'm really proud to be sharing the screen with Grace Zuncic. She leads the People and Culture team as the Chief People and Culture Officer at Chobani, and she's been there really from the beginning of the journey. And Chobani has led on so many fronts: employee incentives, hourly compensation initiatives, pay equity, volunteer programs, leadership programs for women, diversity and inclusion programs, and during the pandemic, a range of ways of supporting employees that have really been cutting edge. But the story I want to sort of discuss today is Chobani's early focus on employee financial wellness and financial security, how that came about, the kinds of decisions that you made, and also to share with us some of the milestones of that journey as to what you're seeing as the outcomes. I think it'll be so important for so many of us who are in this work, but coming into it at a later stage. So Grace, if you could just share that'd be great.
Sure. Well, Franz, thanks so much for having me today. And thanks to all of my colleagues in the HR world who I know are on the phone today, and appreciate you taking the time to hear our stories. Well, the journey for me began 9 years ago, as Franz had mentioned. I'm from the small town in upstate New York, where the first Chobani location is based, very close to. And I remember Franz showing up to my first day of work in a suit. To the plant, and I think I even might have had the heels on, coming out of a traditional bank, and I had my MBA, and I showed up to work, and I remember Hamdi introducing me to his founding team, and thinking, oh, it'll be Silicon Valley type founding team, a lot of people that look like me in a suit. And sure enough, the founding team were old-timer craft employees that stuck around to fulfill Hamdi's dream and vision. They were community people. They were people like my mom and dad. And it was wonderful to really start my journey with Chobani with a deep understanding of the people who we were here to support. And those people were the hourly associates that made everything happen between South Evanston and our plant in Twin Falls. Some of the early decisions that I remember with Hamdi, and there have been so many amazing stories along the way, was really the concept of the living wage. And for Hamdi, from a practical business perspective in those early days, he was using a living wage and good wages as a way to attract the immigrant and refugee community from Utica to make the 45-minute drive to come work at our plant in New Berlin, New York. Benefits were important, how we engaged with the community. Our first community support effort in upstate New York was building a baseball field for the local boys and girls in the local community because they didn't have a baseball field. And his mindset was always to start local. And what I think is brilliant about, Hamdi's influence, which has really trickled down into our whole executive leadership team here at the company, is to remember local first and to sort of be a couple years ahead of where the trends are going. And so when you look at the investment in hiring in immigrant and refugee communities, that's become much more on trend today. The work that we've done around leave benefits and pay, and I admire him for that, kind of having that foresight of what's going to be next.
So as there must have been some moments where you and with your background, and you look at this investment being made in employee financial wellness and financial security. How are we going to know if this is working? How are
Yeah.
we going to see what this contributes back into the business and the growth of the business and the success of the business? How are you thinking about that? And were there milestones where you could sort of step back and say, okay, we are seeing changes in retention, or, things are changing around here because of the way in which we're investing in employees?
Mm-hmm. Well, we were motivated by the good of it all, right? So we were
Yeah.
motivated by taking care of the people that really started the business, that got the business off the ground in upstate New York. But what we found is by taking care of people, we would look at the turnover numbers and see single-digit turnover in the plant in upstate New York. When we were designing our parental leave benefit, I remember it was at a time when companies were really debating between who was the primary and who was the secondary parent. And I remember sitting across the table from Hamdi saying, well, a parent is a parent. There's no primary and secondary. I don't view myself as a secondary parent as a father. And so thinking about parental leave for everyone, and for foster and for adoption and same-sex couples, and being generous with the benefit that would apply to everybody from the cupper in the plant in South Evanston, New York, to members of the leadership team in Hamdi. I think that's helped with retention amazingly so. And what's been interesting about it is Chobani's innovation, yes, product innovation, brand innovation, but a lot of the innovative ideas within the company are coming from ways in which we can support our people. And I think that's what's been really rewarding and interesting. And the benefit of that now for, other folks on the line are thinking about this is that it actually matters now from a branding perspective, an employer brand perspective. And even in the choices that consumers are making in terms of the products that they stand behind or that they support or pay the extra dollar to put in their grocery cart in our circumstances in terms of what we've done. But I think last year, especially during the pandemic, we were able to rally around our people so quickly because of these foundational things that we did in the early days. It's also given us permission to just explore. So for example, we thought, well, we need to commit to at least a $15 minimum wage at the company. This makes sense. How far away are we from that today? Let's just have that discussion. And realizing we weren't so far away, let's go ahead and make that commitment. So the business orientation is to explore, be innovative, think of new ideas and concepts. And it served us well during the pandemic because we were prepared to do right by our people, who we absolutely needed to do right by us to keep up with the demand in the marketplace that we had when so many people were staying at home and buying more groceries and thankfully, buying more of our products.
So you're too modest to disclose it in this setting, but Chobani was named the most innovative company by Fast Company last year, which is something for all of us on the phone to aim for, and not what one would necessarily expect from a company in food production and food service. Mm-hmm. That's really, it speaks to the kinds of innovation you've been bringing to how you treat employees and how you work with employees. Maybe I'd love to sort of talk a little more about your experience with your employee community during the pandemic, because my hypothesis is that, and we felt this at PayPal as well, is that having really invested in employees' financial security and financial wellness and that sense of belonging that comes with it, that your community came into the pandemic in a more resilient way than perhaps had you not. And I was curious if you could share some of that experience of both how you thought about the ways in which you built on that platform of your employee community as you came into the pandemic, and what did you see were the differences in your experience from maybe what other companies experienced?
Yeah. The biggest concern for our employees was, I need to be paid. And what if I'm not well?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? And I think a lot of that was the first primary question to answer is, you're not well? That's okay. Stay home and you will be paid. So the special sick pay implementation that we had as an organization out of the gate was really important. We wanted to show recognition and support. So we did things like, free take-home pizzas. We had trucks of toilet paper delivered to the plants because employees were telling us that toilet paper was a real issue for them. All the table stakes were there around mask usage and temperature checks and the daily health screen and that feeling of safety when you walked into the building. But it was really the support around around the community that we showed. We increased our quarterly bonus program just to demonstrate that commitment that we had to our people to say, look, we're going to give you a little extra each quarter because we bet that you need a little extra each quarter with everything going on at home. We had a $100 a day childcare subsidy that was very effective for our working moms. And it was just beautiful. I mean, all of these things coming together to make people feel that they were truly the priority throughout the duration of last year. I think it put a lot of strain on our managers and leaders who were working, running shifts and what we're going to do for them going forward in terms of recognition and training and development, because they were just extraordinary leading these teams during the pandemic. And I think there's been a lot of talk about frontline employees and all the sacrifices made and the hard work. Working 12-hour shift on your feet isn't so easy, and being out there and doing that day in and day out. But I also want to recognize the managers and the leads that kept those teams together and kept the product going out the door to get to consumers across the country. Service, too, was a rallying for the community. We were doing trucks a day to food banks across the country. And I think people saw that happening and felt connected to that purpose and mission. But I'll tell you, when we told our corporate teams, we call them support teams, corporate with a small c, across the business what we were doing for our hourly associates throughout the pandemic, it really inspired them and motivated them too, right? So I think something that companies should be thinking about, the things that you do for your frontline rally the whole business behind common cause and purpose. And we saw that in a beautiful way in 2020.
Yeah, and that has huge benefits for your customers. And this really goes to the question lots of us are talking about, and you and I have talked about this, about thinking about multi-stakeholder capitalism and how putting employees really first and foremost as you think about how you create value and how you make a difference for all of your stakeholders, and by investing in your employees and really positioning them for resilience and for being able to weather storms like this and to stay part of a vibrant employee community and not worrying about, are they going to be able to make ends meet or how are they going to support their families in tough situations, does inspire the whole company. And it does enable you to do more for your customers. And in your case, certainly more for the communities in which your employees live. So it's really this is really a great validation of the model, I think. So I know that we don't have too much more time left, but maybe I just ask, sort of, as you're looking forward and sort of these next dimensions of working with your employee body, having come through this year, are there some things you're particularly excited about or inspired about in terms of those next initiatives that you'd like to share? Or
No, for sure. I think a deeper understanding around so many different elements of this, right? So what I think is beautiful about the Financial Health Network is the surveying tool, really getting into the weeds of the analytics and understanding, and I applaud everything the network has done in that area. We've been looking at childcare as a major strategic pillar. We've been looking at low-cost loans, which is something that we've recently provided socially responsible credit. It's what we call it to our employees. That's been very helpful in many situations, the 401k, et cetera. The evolution of our growth sharing plans, which are very publicly known, out there in the world and what's going to happen there. But I'm excited about the next big idea. I mean, I would encourage everyone who's attending today to really quantify the ideas, because I've been so pleasantly surprised about some of these high-packed ROI initiatives that really haven't been as costly to Chobani as we thought they were going to be, and really taking the time to explore that. But I think that the pandemic and what we've all experienced and the hardship has brought us closer together and more connected and given us more permission than ever to innovate in putting people first. So I'm excited about all of that and what will result and what will keep coming out of the pandemic, the things that made sense, that really added so much value, and what we should stick with, the child care subsidy being an example of that we're continuing now. And really listening to our people and understanding better what their needs are and where the company can step in and continue to have a good impact.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect way for me to go to the close. It's I mean, it's really as I think I said at the outset, a lot of us have been watching Chobani and the progress and your innovations over, I guess, the last decade. And it's really been inspiring to have a chance to sort of hear from you directly and to be able to get some additional perspective of from where you sit in the journey of the company. And I guess just in winding down this first session, it's clear to me that all of every company has an opportunity to really start thinking hard about how its employees are experiencing the ups and downs in the economy, how the workplace and how they connect in the workplace community affects the way in which they live the rest of their lives in their communities. And we really have a big opportunity and an obligation to think about how our employees' financial health is having an impact on them and their families and their communities. So just finally, I'd say that there's a lot of work being done by a number of different companies in partnership with the Financial Health Network and the Good Jobs Institute and Just Capital. And it's a joint initiative around worker financial wellness. And I'm hoping that for all of you who out there who have not yet had a chance to have some exposure to this, definitely look into it. And we'd welcome providing more information around this. And a special thank you to Grace and to all of our friends at the Financial Health Network. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Thank you, Franz.